you can beat your guy and get open. But if the offense isn't designed for receivers specifically, if the offense isn't intentionally trying to get you the ball, I'm going to tell you right now, you grow bored. You're running routes and you're open. Maybe the ball comes to you. Maybe it doesn't because the quarterback is working a progression, right? And to me, it was clear that they didn't enter the season saying that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be top of mind every single game, every single week. We got to get him involved in the game plan.
Love that we're getting this guy in here. Of course, subscribe, hit that like on this video. Solomon Wilcots, host SiriusXM's NFL opening drive. Of course, NFL analyst, former NFL safety. Great work with the Russo partners. We're going to hear more about that healthcare technology. Joining Bo Brack here, Johnny Venerable. Solomon, how we doing? How do you gauge this past 2024 season for the Arizona Cardinals? They doubled their win total, but there was certainly an opportunity lost there, wasn't there?
Yeah, you get the sense you want to see your team sort of make that quantum leap. While you saw them make significant strides forward, and I think improvements on both sides of the ball, and even as an organization. And then it starts obviously with the improvement in your quarterback, Kyler Murray, who made significant strides, I believe. But you wanted to see maybe, I think as you saw them get off to a really good start and have some very competitive moments, you wanted to see just how far they could take it, right? In 2024. And instead of seeing the sort of quantum leap, we saw significant strides. You saw improvements, I think, in just about every phase of the game. This is a team that's not only competitive, they look like they have fun competing. However, it sort of went out in a whimper, right? Lost some games maybe you thought you should have won. Even though those games were competitive, you wanted to see them finish in a flurry. And that's where it didn't happen, but at least it leaves you understanding where you need to improve in 2025.
Solomon, you were once a rookie in this league. You know how big of a transition it is to go from the collegiate level to the pro level. And we're as guilty as anybody, anointing Marvin Harrison Jr. as the next guy, right? Generational. And, had a good year by all accounts, just under 900 yards, 8 receiving touchdowns, but not that Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type year that people were forecasting. What did you see from the 4th overall pick from Ohio State? And why do you believe, it might take a year or two for him to find his footing?
Yeah, I don't think it'll take a year or two. I was like most people. I thought it would happen initially. And I think what you got to understand at the wide receiver position, it doesn't just happen. Like Malik Neighbors, for instance, out in New York, he was kind of going through some of the same growing pains because you can beat your guy and get open. But if the offense isn't designed for receivers specifically, if the offense isn't intentionally trying to get you the ball, I'm going to tell you right now, you grow bored. You're running routes and you're open. Maybe the ball comes to you. Maybe it doesn't because the quarterback is working a progression, right? And to me, it was clear that they didn't enter the season saying that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be top of mind every single game, every single week. We got to get him involved in the game plan. You just didn't see that. We even heard Kyler Murray say early, that's not my job. He was basically saying that's not our intention here. I mean, if you really listen to him, I think he was like, look, and I didn't think he wanted to throw the coordinator under the bus or the coach. I think he was trying to speak truthfully without revealing, here is what we're trying to do on offense, right? Which, every quarterback, they don't want to show you their hand like playing a game of cards. But I think it was clear organizationally that they didn't feel like they wanted to prioritize him in that way that you saw teams do with Justin Jefferson when he came to Minnesota, or Jamar Chase when he entered the league the very next year with the Cincinnati Bengals in 2021. I think they wanted to ease him in. I think eventually they did have some moments where they say, okay, let's feature Marvin Harrison Jr., and he showed what he could do. So I think next year it's got to be more top of mind. It's got to be more intentional because I think he has so much more to offer. And if you really get him going, then what more does that do for the other players? I love Trey McBride. I love, obviously, James Conner's phenomenal. What will that do for the other guys on the offense? Because I think it opened things up that much more.
Yeah, Kyler Murray, a full season now removed from the ACL injury that he suffered back in 2022. We'll get into, the advances as far as technology and, knee procedures. But, you mentioned that moment with Kyler. Not my job. It was one of the many moments where I think the quarterback gets nitpicked unfairly by, the national media, right? He's not trying to say anything like and throw anybody under the bus. Yeah. He's just kind of delivering, what he knows to be facts there. Yes. When we look at Kyler's season, like my co-host Johnny and I, we felt like if Kyler Murray plays 17 games, this team's going to be a playoff team. And we saw, I think far more pedestrian numbers than we anticipated, 21 passing touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns. Like they're fine numbers, but we expected maybe a little bit more than that. How do you evaluate K1's performance this past season?
I was much better. All right? Here are the things that he's doing. He's being more of an efficient quarterback. He's being more I think deliberate in terms of his studies and more of understanding what teams are trying to do to him. He's not making the costly mistakes. I do know down the stretch there were couple of games where I thought he's got to take better care of football. That game against the Rams, remember, he was the late interceptions. I just thought he could do a better job of that. But I think week over week, he's more invested in the game plan. He's more invested in working the game plan. I think we're not seeing as many fireworks because we know he can give more. We've seen him be a consistent 4,000-yard passer, 30 touchdowns, close to that. We've seen him do it. But I do believe there's got to be more of a marriage between what they're trying to accomplish schematically, right? The offensive coordinator, what are you asking of Kyler Murray? Because it's clear to me that they're not asking him to be that guy. I think going into 2025, they clearly can ask him to do that. This is an offense that's more predicated on the run game, giving you more play action pass, not as many spectacular shots, but more consistently winning time of possession and things of that nature. But I do believe he is bought in as a quarterback who really is tied with the coaching staff of here's what we're trying to do. At any given moment in games and on a week-to-week basis, he seems to be more of a student of the game. And that's why I predict that he's going to have greater years to come. I think the offensive coordinator, I think they've just got to really decide in what way, shape, or form that we're going to empower him to really unleash what we know he can do. And then obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. has got to be a part of that plan.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Solomon. What kind of offense do they want to be? They kind of have to take the training wheels off. Yep. One player who I feel like, and you mentioned him, didn't suffer from the offensive infrastructure, Trey McBride, breakout season, 1,100 yards, first Pro Bowl berth. Yeah. Where do you put him in the echelon of tight ends now with the Brock Bowers, with the George Kittles, the Travis Kelce? Is he right there in your opinion?
He's top 5. He's an ascending player. While some of those other guys, let's face it, they're descending. Look, I'm just going to still give Travis Kelce all the props. I'm still giving Kittle all the props. Guys like TJ Hawkinson was entering that group, but obviously with the injury, Trey McBride has exceeded a guy like a TJ Hawkinson. He's exceeded some of the other tight ends. Even I put him even above a Pat Freiermuth, for instance, who I have a lot of respect for. I thought Trey McBride, even going back to 2022, you could see that he was a guy that was on the come. And then last year, 2023, and then 2024 was just phenomenal. So I love what I see from him. I think he's going to be one of the top tight ends in our game. I'm talking with the Sam Laportas of the world, and obviously Brock Bowers. To me, he's already the GOAT. He's already he shattered every record that any tight end in their first year that we've ever seen, and so he's already, I think, at the top of the class. He's going to be teaching classes at tight end U, by the way, this offseason.
I mean, that's high praise coming from a guy, an alum of CU, of a Colorado State guy. He's willing to say all that about a former Ram, but I mean, the Buffs, big brother of the Rams anyway, so it's all well and good, right?
We still have an arm around them. It's quite all right. Yeah,
just tussle their hair, like that's cute. Yeah. You can have one NFL player out of a couple. Obviously, your background playing safety, so is Jonathan Gannon's. His fingerprints all over this defense, and overachieving defense that we feel like we saw probably the more consistent side of the football. Buda Baker flying around, playing at just an unbelievable clip. What was your big takeaway on this defense? I mean, I think we all still want to see maybe more talent thrown at the defensive front seven, but overall points per game, I think, Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, just outside the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. No, what you want to see is just more splash plays, more consistently. It's allowed them. Look, I thought that once I got to look at them in the early part of the season, I thought the defense and the run game was going to get this team to 10 wins.
Yeah.
That's because I thought early on, I thought they were among. Listen, I think it's a crowded division. I think all four teams are evenly matched. But you and I both know that to say that the Cardinals quickly are now in the same par as the 49ers and the Rams and Seahawks, that's saying a lot. I didn't think it was going to be a walk away for whoever was going to win the division. I didn't think it was going to be a walk away. But I thought the Cardinals had a good shot of winning the division. And it was because of the defense. It was because of the way they played. I love the way they used Buda Baker. He gets the new contract. You and I both know, rightfully so. I thought for a minute he was going to be on the trade block right about halfway in the season, or just as we were going into the year, there was some talk that they might deal Buda. And then I thought at the trade deadline they might. But then I saw he gets the new contract, and rightfully so. This is a guy that you can build around because he does so many different things in the defense. And he gives, I think, you as a coordinator, he gives you great flexibility for what you can do in terms of coverage, blitzing, run defender. There's nothing that he can't do. He's like that Swiss Army knife that you hear people talk about. And he gives you, I think, as a coordinator, just great flexibility in terms of what you can do. So it's a defense that needs a little bit more, right? I think you need a little bit more in the pass rush game. You need more playmakers on the back end. I think anytime you're in the same division with a Matthew Stafford, you can't have enough DBs who can get their hands on the ball, because that dude is a stone cold killer. And that's why you have to me, you got to build a defense to stop the teams that you're going to see in your division. And I think that's a lot of work if you're an Arizona team, because you got to play against all of the other three quarterbacks can light it up, including Geno Smith. And we know that Brock Purdy and that 49ers offense, they can get it going. And for me, I think, I just think Matthew Stafford is one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. Not even close. I mean, he's top 5 every single day of the week.
Solomon, I'm with you, and I think you mentioned pass rush. That's kind of on the checklist, the Christmas list for Cardinal fans this offseason. Yeah. There are 2 free agents to be that played with Jonathan Gannon in Philadelphia. Hassan Reddick, assuming he exits the Jets, and Josh Sweat, who's currently in the postseason with the Philadelphia Eagles. Is there a fit there? Cardinals, Zaven Collins led this team in sacks last year with just 5. It feels like a reunion with either Philadelphia edge rusher would be warranted.
Look, Hassan Reddick is a natural-born pass rusher. I mean, he's a guy that can totally get after the quarterback, and Gannon would know that, obviously, the time they spent in Philadelphia and the numbers that Reddick was able to put up. Now, look, he's moved around. You can tell if he's not happy, he's not going to have the production. I think there needs to be a unique conversation in terms of where he's at and what he wants to accomplish, and then I think you can have that conversation. Pass rushers, you just got to be careful because, man, it takes a lot of energy. I don't know if you guys know this. It takes a lot of energy to get after the quarterback. And to do it for 60-plus plays on defense every single week, week in, week out, for 17, 18 weeks, takes a lot of energy. That's why you see on defensive lines, you need a rotation of guys. And I think if you look at Denver, the way that they built the pass rush, we had multiple guys, right, with 5 or more sacks, because it really does take a coordinated effort. If you think that it's going to come from just one guy and that is sustainable, which I don't believe it is, for one guy he may get those sacks. If you go back and look at these guys, they're getting double-digit sacks. They'll get a bulk of them against one team. And if you play a weak offensive tackle twice in the same season because he's in your division, you'll see that half those sacks came against some weak link at the tackle position. But you need, what you want is someone who can provide that production consistently, not just here and there. And that's why I think you've got to really be careful when you put down a lot of money on pass rushers. Listen, everybody would love to have a Myles Garrett because that guy can get off against anyone because he's a cyborg, man. You know, he was built in a lab. I mean, he's a different guy. If you take a guy like TJ Watt or his brother JJ Watt, who you guys know because you caught him at the end of his career, he just outworked you, right? He outworked you. He was quick for a big man, but he would outwork you. It was his cardiovascular system that allowed him to go hard for the entire game. When J.J. Watt decided he was going to get after the quarterback, you couldn't stop him. He just had this energy about him, and those are the kind of players I look for when it comes to pass rusher. Cincinnati Bengals have one in Trey Hendrickson. Trey's not more talented than some of these other pass rushers. You know what he's got? He's got more want to than the rest of them. That's why he's had 17 and a half sacks, 2 consecutive seasons, and led the league this past year. This guy's got a motor that won't quit. And I think if you're looking at pass rushers, to me, that to me is the most critical, important factor. TJ Watt, JJ Watt, they've got it in spades, but they also have the talent to go along with it. They've got quickness. They've got get off. They know the moves, but their motor is second to nobody's.
Solomon, tremendous insight. You talk about coordinated efforts. You've got one going on here behind the scenes, very patient. Help us introduce the guest that's join you here on the broadcast and give our audience more insight. What's going on?
See, just like you guys are a tag team, Dr. Robert Parisian, he's an orthopedic surgeon out of New York, and he's going to tell us about this very innovative treatment that they're now using to repair cartilage damage in the knee. So, Dr. Parisian, why don't you help people to understand some of the new technology out there? Because there's a lot of weekend warriors like myself. We want to save our knees. We still want to golf. We still want to play basketball. So tell us how we can get that done.
Well, hey, great to join you guys. I really appreciate being here. And anytime I can, talk football and talk cartilage in a night, it's a good night. So, as you know, there's a lot of knee pain out there, and we see, millions of patients a year, in the United States that come in with knee pain. Many have cartilage defects. And real quick, what's cartilage? Cartilage is this cushioning inside the knee that provides cushion and also a nice sort of nice, smooth gliding surface in the knee. And sometimes you can have this defect, which is like a pothole in the road is the way I like to describe it. So the rest of the road's fine, and you have an area that's just a pothole. That's a problem. It can cause swelling, pain, and decreased function, maybe lead to arthritis. What do we have now moving forward, and that are really big technological advances is that we can do cartilage transplantation by taking your own cartilage cells, growing them in a lab, putting them on a membrane, perfectly size matching that and fitting that defect perfectly and transplanting your own cartilage cells into that defect. And this is called MACI. Matrix-induced autologous chondrocyte implantation is the big fancy word for it, but it's MACI, and this has really revolutionized cartilage transplant.
Robert, what's the timeline for something like that? If you were to take cartilage from different parts of the body, and you mentioned grow it in a lab, what's the time frame you're looking at for somebody, or is it a case-by-case basis?
No, it's a great question. So the initial procedure, we go in and we do an arthroscopic procedure. What does that mean? Surgery with a camera. So a little incision like the size of my nail on my small finger, my pinky. I go with the camera, a little small arthroscopic instruments. Size the lesion, measure it, take a piece of cartilage, send it to the company, Vericel, that can then grow it in the lab. About 6 weeks later, we can come back and we can implant that cartilage into the knee. Now, the company's going to hold the cartilage cells for 5 years. So, it doesn't have to be done immediately. So we have some patients that choose to do it immediately. We have some that choose to do it later, but it's a great option. The next procedure we go in, we make smaller incisions. to transplant or implant that cartilage. Again, fill that pothole, replace that cartilage in your body. Now, recently, we've developed arthroscopic instrumentation that has been FDA approved in 2024 that allows us to really go in and, again, maybe the thumbnail on my finger, small incisions to use a little cannula and then just transplant that cartilage patch into the knee. So really making minimally invasive procedure here. So it's great for patient outcomes.
Where can we find more information on all this?
Macy.com is where you can look this up. The company, again, is called Venerable, that has really been helping us and assisting us surgeons that specialize in sports medicine, injuries of the knee, and cartilage defects. And you get a lot more information there. But like I said, the Macy arthroscopic, minimally invasive, just camera surgery is really revolutionizing cartilage transplant. It's an exciting time.
Thank you, doctor, for the time. From somebody who is in his late 30s with bad knees, I will keep you on file. Be sure to check everybody out. It's Macy, MACI.com here on PHNX Cardinals.